Hello and welcome to a special edition of The Big Fight. We are, of course, today going to be taking stock of the situation between India and Pakistan after those surgical strikes and the rather strange Pakistani reaction to that, where they essentially said nothing has happened. And a range of experts are going to tell us what they think of that and what the next steps are likely to be. But before I do any of that, where am I and why am I here? This is the Juhu beach, which is right behind me. And I'm in Mumbai because a very big event is coming up tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and that is the cleanathon. Tomorrow, of course, is Gandhi Jayanti, Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. It's also being treated as Rashtriya Swachhata Day. And we've organized a massive cleanathon. Amitabh Bachchan is going to be here, right here on this set, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And we're going to be organizing cleanups in 10 iconic locations across the country and also in 500 other spots. And if you can organize a cleanup, it's still not too late. All you have to do is find on some small area which you can clean up, small, big, medium, take your pick. Clean it up, send us the pictures, tweet us the pictures, email us the pictures, and we'll be taking it through the day on the cleanathon. So that's 9 a.m. tomorrow morning till 9 p.m. Do remember to join us for that. And of course, you can come right here to Juhu Beach if you want. That also needs a certain amount of cleaning up. And we'd love you to be here with us. All right, let's get started now with the main subject of the big fight, which is, of course, the situation now which is emerging between India and Pakistan. Now, you will recall in the big fight exactly 1 week ago, we looked at a range of options. Will there be a diplomatic option that is going to be followed? Should it be military action? That's what seems to have been done. Should it be covert action? May also be on the anvil. Should there be economic sanctions, or should we just try and ratchet down all the pressure and start talking? So it looks as if this particular week, considerable movement, at least on two fronts. Number one was diplomatic, both at the United Nations, and then India successfully getting just about all its neighbors in SAARC to actually boycott SAARC in Pakistan. And that is the first time I think India has been able to really get its neighbors together in this manner. So considerable success on the diplomatic front. And then, of course, that military action with the surgical strikes that took place. Now, we're going to start. I want to just welcome all of our guests and take you through what possibly the implications of this are. But let's just get the latest sense of what the government itself is thinking and saying. The Defence Minister, Manoj Parrikar, made this statement a little earlier today, and it needs to be listened to carefully and understood. This is the Defence Minister.
पीड़ा देना चाहते हैं तो इस देश की सेना, इस देश के लोग सभी आपको भी पीड़ा देने में समर्थ है। एनेस्थेसिया देता है, भूल देता है, भूल बोलते हैं। भूल देने के कारण जो की ऑपरेशन होती है, सर्जरी होती है, उसको ध्यान में नहीं आता है कि सर्जरी हो गई। 2 दिन हो गया, पाकिस्तान को अभी तक ध्यान में नहीं है।
All right, let me start going across to all of our guests. Brahma Chelani is with us, the person who's been really arguing in a very impassioned manner for a slightly tougher response than we've been seeing so far. So great to have you joining us. Pawan Khera is joining us from the Congress Party. The Congress Party actually coming out very strongly in support of the government. Rahul Gandhi praising Narendra Modi, and the Congress Party giving the government considerable support. Chandan Mitra joining us to tell us what he makes of all of this. We have Colonel R.S.N. Singh, former RAW officer, strategic analyst. It's wonderful to have you with us as well. And it's great to have K.C. Singh with us as well, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. We're going to be joined very shortly by Major General G.D. Bakshi, who's also somebody who's been talking about the fact that tougher action needs to have been taken on Pakistan. And Shekhar Gupta is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes as well, whose view is that the paradigm has changed and has changed forever. All right, let me start with you first, K.C. Singh, actually, because I'm slightly intrigued by the Pakistani reaction, although perhaps we should have expected that reaction, because here you have surgical strikes that have taken place, and Pakistan says nothing has actually happened, it's just firing across the line of control. Now, if you think about it strategically, I guess that means that they don't have to necessarily think about retaliation and therefore escalation. So perhaps it was something that we should have always factored into our calculations, and maybe the government did factor it in, that's what the Pakistani reaction would be.
It's true. The Pakistani initial reaction seems to indicate the usual sense of denial which they had all through Kargil, which they had through every major terrorist event in India. Now, the only thing is that do we contest it or we let it ride? Because we made a strategic shift, we made a tactical move. The message has gone to whoever it needed to go to, which is the Pakistani army. But do we have to rub their nose in the ground? Because that is to provoke them then to react. Because there's a retiring army chief there. He'll have to show that army has a self-image. It thinks it's got all the warriors. There are no warriors in India. And therefore, provoking them is that part of what the government wants. Because from the government, we are hearing two voices. When you hear the official part of the government, including Prime Minister, these are moderating voices. Then you have the defense minister, you have a minister of state in INB, and also Venkaiah Naidu, and they come on strong. I think that's because the government has a problem. They have a PR problem. The BJP wants to also convey to the people, they are sensitive elections coming up, that they've taken action. But at the same time, the government realizes, that moderate voice would be suiting a purpose best because the message has already gone across.
All right, Brahma Chalani, let me get you in on that, and then I'm going to get both the Congress and the BJP to weigh in as well. Brahma, the view KC Singh is making is that India has achieved what it had to, the message has gone out. Now perhaps a more moderate way of responding, give the Pakistanis therefore the face saver that they seem to be clinging to, which is to say nothing actually happened. Allow them to have that face saver so that they don't feel compelled into some sort of a retaliation that then becomes an escalation. Would you agree with that viewpoint that he's expressed? Well, and therefore, would you disagree with some extent to what Manohar Parrikar said today?
Let's keep in mind that the Pakistani military has a long history of denying activities of its own. For example, it denied sending raiders into J&K in 1947. It denied conducting Operation Gibraltar in 1965, an operation in which regular army soldiers were sent as plainclothes people into J&K. It denied the Kargil intrusion. And how can the Pakistan military admit that the Indian paratroopers entered Pakistani territory to wipe out terrorist sanctuaries? The very fact that the Pakistan military does not even admit training and arming terrorists, let alone admitting any terrorist launch pads on Pakistani territory, prevents the Pak military from actually admitting.
Brahma, your point is 100% correct. Pakistan has a history of denial. I mean, come on, they denied that Osama bin Laden was hiding there. Last week on this very program, we had a former Pakistani army person who's actually came on the show and said that Osama bin Laden was never killed in Pakistan. Who's Osama bin Laden? We don't know whether he was ever there. So yes, they're denying it. I think the point that KC was making was slightly different. Yes, they're denying it. Their denial obviously rings really hollow. But do not come out with the evidence that India almost certainly has. That is the drone footage and the video footage, which basically rubs their nose in it and saying, not only did we come in, not only did we do the surgical strike, here's the proof of it, and we've caught you with your pants down now lying. Don't take that step. I think that's what KC is saying.
Well, India is not really doing anything beyond the bare minimum.
Yeah.
For India, this operation was a limited military operation. It had limited military objectives, and India has secured only limited military benefits. So let's not look at this operation in a larger-than-life perspective. This was a limited operation. It yielded, I think, much greater political, psychological, and diplomatic benefits. Now, for those benefits to endure, India has to stay the course. India's main problem under successive governments has been the inability to stay its course beyond a few months.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to come to Chandan and Pavan on the politics of this. So far, blissfully, there's been no politics, and that's really wonderful for any Indian to see that there's been no politics. Is politics going to start playing a role now? But before that, let me just come to Major General G.D. Bakshi, who's been in a very impassioned manner for a long period of time saying, we have to hit back and India has to show Pakistan that it means business. General Bakshi, I just wanted to ask you, you heard what some of our other panelists were saying. The surgical strikes have happened. What do you think India should do now? Sit back a little bit, wait and see how the Pakistani army and the Pakistanis are going to react to whatever has happened this week, or raise the temperature further? What would be your advice?
You know, before this action had been undertaken, I am very certain the escalation ladders would have been war-gamed. Every rung of the escalation ladder would have been thought through. Action-reaction cycles would have been worked out. So quite obviously, we would like to wait and watch. I think for the time being, the objective that we had set ourselves was a limited tactical action with a huge strategic impact. The greatest thing about this action, Vikram, is not that it is, you know, the scale and scope, operational scale and scope of the trans-border action, but the fact that you have crossed the line of control for the first time after the 1971 war. You only crossed this in 1965 and 1971. Thereafter, you didn't cross the LC during the Kargil fighting. You didn't cross the LC during Parakram, you didn't cross the LC after Mumbai, etc., etc. The fact of the matter is, you've sent a clear message across. Look, you have crossed a limit of tolerance, a threshold of tolerance. You crossed, this is a shot across the bow. You escalate any further, and I'm afraid you try getting back to the normal that the LET, that the Jaish-e-Mohammed continue to operate across the LCIB, there will be more of the same, there will be costs and consequences. And the LC sanctity will not hold just because you have nuclear weapons. And to all those Cassandras of doom who felt we could do it in Myanmar, but we couldn't do it in Pakistan, think again. Think again.
Right. So you're saying for the moment, though, sit back, wait and see what Pakistan is going to do. Don't rub their nose in it any further by releasing drone footage or releasing evidence of the strike and showing the Pakistani army to be liars. That's what your advice would also be on this, at this point.
Wait. Not quite. My point is, if you wanted to do that, you should have kept the whole operation secret. The point at view, Vikram, was the entire nation was crying out for catharsis. 30 years we have been a punching bag. Pakistan, of course, will be in denial. Pakistan will be in denial because you remember the last time when the Abbottabad raid took place, their army chief was shouted down.
But the country's... Yeah, but the country is not in denial. The country knows what happened. I mean, in India, public opinion knows what happened because, frankly, the Pakistani army's denials don't have much credibility. As we've been just saying on this program, they deny everything. So, you know, they're denying that Dawood Ibrahim is there. They'll probably deny that Hafiz Saeed is there if it wasn't for the fact he's having press conferences every 2 days or, you know, addressing rallies. Right. General Bakshi, we got what you think. Let me just get in now the political view, and then I want to come to Shekhar to explain why he thinks the paradigm has changed forever. Chandan, I guess you're hearing what many of the strategic experts are saying, and the government seems to be, you know, wanting to now proceed in a slightly measured and a moderate manner. Politically, though, many in the BJP may want to blow the trumpet a bit more, beat the drums a bit more, and saying, look, this is what has happened and this is what we have done. And I'm not saying that's what Manohar Parrikar did entirely, but to some extent today, there was a further challenge that he threw down, saying that the Pakistani, you know, they're in anesthesia right now after the surgery. Do you think politically the BJP has achieved anything that it may have wanted to, or do you think the politics are now going to start playing out in the response? Because obviously politically the BJP would want to hype this up far more than some of the voices in the government may want to.
No, not necessarily. I think the BJP has achieved whatever political mileage that was to be taken, obviously, without making any effort. The fact that we have crossed the LOC, that we have pulverized some terrorist launching pads, and taken a step which the whole country wanted the government to take, and what the people really expected a Prime Minister like Narendra Modi to do, that has been done. I don't think that needs to be shouted and screamed and yelled from rooftops over and over again. That has been achieved politically. Obviously, the government of the day, namely the BJP, would have gained the mileage, and I think there is no need really to do anything much more in terms of escalating the decibel levels of the comment. But I want to make another point, Vikram,
Okay,
which
don't
is
raise-
that we must
don't
be
raise
clear
decibel level.
about our long-term objective. A long-term objective which is to end cross-border terrorism and to prevent incidents like Uri, Pathankot before that, and many others that have happened from happening. We must prevent Pakistan from waging this low-cost war of 1,000 cuts against India, and somehow we have to defang the Pakistani military establishment. And towards that, if more action
And I
is
think
required,
that's a
I'm sure
valid point,
the
Chandan. I want to
government
come
will
back to
move
that.
in that direction, but we don't have to announce it in advance.
Right. I think that's a very valid point, and I think we have to figure out how that happens, because even the army wouldn't say, and no one in the political establishment would say that these surgical strikes by itself has necessarily changed the pattern of supporting terror that we've seen in Pakistan all this time. Pawan Khera, let me come to you. The fact that the Congress party has come out in such strong support of the government on this action, was that also a reflection of the fact that you knew that there was a lot of anger in the country? Just after the surgical strikes, we heard many sources in the government saying it was like just after Nirbhay, that much anger was there. So you knew that you couldn't be arguing with the government on this particular issue at this stage,
The issue
whatever
is
the
not
politics of it may
Vikram,
be.
the issue is not of arguing with this government on what it did now. The issue is there was also anger in the country for the flip-flop of this government in the last 2 years, starting from first inviting Nawaz Sharif for your swearing in, then because of the Hurriyat meeting, the High Commissioner calling off the Foreign Secretary level talks, then going and touching the feet of Nawaz Sharif's mother, then inviting the JIT to Pathankot, NIA not getting invited to allowed to Pakistan. So there was a lot of flip-flop, and Pakistan kept on.
So the government's reaction to that
is
reaction to that is to say that
absolutely.
the Pakistanis were the ones who did the flip-flop because they were
Sorry,
being
but
very
Hurriyat-
courtesy and
Hurriyat
polite,
has-
and Sushma
Hurriyat
Swaraj went
Vikram
there
has
and was
forever
hugged.
been-
Everything was fine. Nawaz Sharif suddenly changed.
Hurriyat
Sorry, Vikram.
has been meeting the High Commissioner here forever.
Sorry,
now you
Vikram.
can't suddenly raise the stature of Hurriyat. Yeah, jokers who are not taken seriously, Suddenly you hinge your foreign policy on Hurriyat meeting the High Commissioner. So, and these forays across the LOC have been happening forever again. But going public with these forays, with these so-called surgical strikes, has its own set of complications, risks. I hope, and we sincerely hope, for the sake of peace, for the sake of this country, that the government has understood, analyzed, and will take care of all. There is a proper risk assessment of this kind of an approach of going public. This, unfortunately, is a government which depends a lot on television. And the cheerleaders sitting in the studios, I hope the government is not really getting carried away by the cheerleaders also. It should not have gone public. There's a choice all governments face. Either be effective or play to the galleries. I hope the government is effective and is not just playing to the
Before
galleries.
I come to the others, Chandan, you want to respond to that? Don't be guided by cheerleaders in TV studios.
Yeah,
and
I want to
don't
respond. I'm
necessarily play politics with it.
very nice sound bites, but they just are hiding the absolute inability and pusillanimity of 10 years of Manmohan Singh, when we had repeated attacks from across the border. Our Jawans' heads were
Sir,
cut off.
80
the
days of
beheaded, and
curfew
the
in
heads
Kashmir,
were
Dr.
thrown
Mitra.
back at
80
India.
days of
And
curfew in Kashmir. Now, come on,
one
let's
minute,
not even get
minute.
started
That-
there.
Don't mix up Kashmir.
I am sorry.
Don't
No,
mix up Kashmir
they are all
with
interlinked.
Pakistan.
They are all interlinked.
And
Please
I'm
admit.
really pained.
Please admit that
I'm
your
really
BJP
pained
PDP
that
experiment has failed.
No,
Please
we
admit.
are not discussing
And it's,
Kashmir
it's
here.
14 incursions.
We are
so
not
many people dead.
talking
So many of
Kashmir,
our soldiers
and
died.
I am
You
pained
can't
and
even
shocked
compare the 10
that
years with these 2
you are
years.
today
Let's not play
breaching
politics.
the-
We are with you on
breaching
what
the
this
consensus
government
in
has
the
done.
country.
But we have
Can
our
I-
strong
can
doubts
I-
about
You are
going
playing
public.
just
politics,
saying-
Mr. Khera. You are playing politics. I did not play any politics.
You know what
I
I
was
just
just
told.
saying how
Yeah,
wonderful
absolutely.
it is that we
But
don't
you
have
know,
politics in
but
this
pause.
reaction.
Congress
Just stop and reflect. Is it a good strategy to go public?
Under
Gentlemen.
Congress's feet.
Gentlemen.
And your Prime Minister
Okay,
of 10
gentlemen,
years
gentlemen,
was doing
gentlemen,
flip-flop
gentlemen,
and
Prime
flip for 10 years and introduced
Okay,
Sharma
can we,
Sheikh,
I was
Sharma
just
Sheikh.
saying how
And
wonderful
today
it is that we
you are-
don't have
what you are
politics in
saying
the
But the
is
same,
perfect.
the
Maybe
same,
it's too much to
same
ask for.
Balochistan was
Can I
released on the
just-
15th
can
of
I
August
just
by
Shekhar,
Mr. Narendra
You are
Modi.
saying we should have
You're
continued.
basically
Mr.
carrying
Modi
forward
should
the
have
legacy.
continued to sit with his hands
course, through
folded,
TV
folded
studios.
and begged the Pakistanis, which is what your Prime Minister did, and you want us to continue? Sorry, there's a decisive shift. The whole thing has changed.
Look,
Fair.
gentlemen.
Mr. Khera, you have
Chandan,
a new
Pavan,
government.
it's been a
Let
week of
Vikram
some
take the-
unanimity politically. I think let's go on with that.
We don't want to
Let's
fight
go
on
on with
this,
that.
sorry.
Shekhar, can I just get you in?
There
Shekhar,
was,
can I
but
get
he
you in?
destroyed it.
Before I
just
think our
destroyed
guest
it.
from Pakistan is almost ready. I
Can
want to
I-
go across to
can
him as
we-
well.
can
Shekhar,
we
you've
just come
written. Shekhar, you've written that it's a paradigm shift, which you may or may not agree with, but there's a paradigm shift that has taken place. Would you just like to expand on that? Why is this a paradigm shift in your view?
Well, I don't particularly like using the word paradigm, so I haven't used it. I've gone around it and said postulates have changed.
Okay, I've
There is a-
paraphrased you.
There's a new pillar of Pakistan policy. See, what this does is, it's not the first time, I say with respect to General Bakshi, that Indian troops have operated across the line of control for limited actions. It's been done several times, including once with,
Shekhar,
Sir, let me complete it. Including once with 4 Mirages.
Yeah.
It's a well-known story. A few months after Kargil, 4 Mirages were used with laser bombs to clear out a feature where Pakistanis had a foothold. But the important thing is that this time government has decided to go public with it, and that is what changes the picture completely. And that's why I'm not even so concerned. I think the whole argument over how effective the raid was, what did the raid achieve militarily, are minor tactical points. These are not strategic points. Strategic points is India has now said that after having harped on the sanctity of the LOC formally, and then working within that like hypocrites, India has now said the idea that only Pakistan can operate across the LOC because Pakistan has the alibi or has the cover of their civilians, which is terrorists. They are not soldiers. It doesn't mean that India will not do it just because India doesn't use its civilians to fight. So that situation is altered, and with that you saw the kind of nuclear threats Pakistanis are holding out. I think it's the most irresponsible nuclear talk. Even North Koreans don't talk like this, who gave Pakistan its first missiles, right? They talk irresponsibly, but not like this, and we can laugh at them because we are so far. But the fact is that this time that bluff has been called. I'm not saying that they will nuclear escalation is not possible. We should not worry about it. But the fact is that the threshold for nuclear deterrence has been raised. And the third thing, what we call strategic restraint, has now been replaced. One, with something called defensive offense. And second, the definition of strategic restraint has also changed. That threshold has also been lifted.